big challenge. And Rebecca, I fundamentally cannot understand people who choose the state over the family. Like, that
Yeah.
just seems kind of weird to me. Like, you would choose what, Islam over your family, you would choose the state over your family, you would choose some government union over your family. Like, it's family for I've got this against me argument, which I've been talking about for years, that if the family, if somebody around you, it doesn't matter family or not, somebody around you argues for bigger government and more taxes, then they're arguing for more coercion against you. They're arguing for the initiation of force against you.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when I first put this argument out, I guess in my optimism, I was thinking that people would say, whoa, wait a minute. I'm choosing an abstract agency of coercion called the state over my own flesh and blood. No way would I do that. And the weird thing is, like, I thought that would just be kind of like a wake-up call and bring families closer together, get them to reject this addiction to state violence. I guess, I don't know, I underestimated the power of propaganda. I don't know. I underestimated how many shiny heads on television could make people believe irrational things. Because what happened was people are like, oh yeah, totally choosing the state over you, flesh and blood, fruit of our ancestors' loins, the together tribe in times of trouble. And that to me is really astounding. I cannot fathom. It's like saying, well, there's this wonderful guy I could marry, but there is this orc. And it's like, the orc? What are you talking about? It's abstract, doesn't exist, agency of violence, and, not terribly pretty. So I can't understand how people bond with the state over and above their own family. And I guess maybe it's just resources. Maybe the state is their sugar daddy. I don't know.
And we've been propagandized through state school since we were very, very young. Just undoing the indoctrination that I've experienced has taken nearly a decade now, and I'd imagine that everybody else is in kind of the same situation where they just have to go through their childhood and just kind of systematically dismantle almost everything that they've learned in public schools. And, it's a lot of the political climate that is compelling us to move away from genetic and biological urges. So this really baffles me. We see this in feminism, women rejecting their most basic instinct to have children. That's how we know how deep this propaganda really runs. And we know what's good for us. We know family is good for us. Women know that children are good for us. But we're not doing it because we've been so deeply propagandized.
And I would say, you're sort of asking for advice, and I'm trying not to dance too much around the topic because the advice can be challenging. For me, Rebecca, what happened was I really did demand that people in my family of origin accept, whether they disagreed with my conclusions, whether they disagreed with all of that they did have to respect that I was motivated by positive things. That I was motivated, like I just tweeted this the other day, that Black and Hispanic unemployment is down fairly significantly under Donald Trump. So, the people who supported Donald Trump, oh, you're a racist. It's like, well, not very good at being racist if I'm cheering and celebrating the fact that Black and Hispanic unemployment has gone down. More Blacks and Hispanics are working. Fantastic. That's going to make the Black family stronger, Hispanic family stronger. It's going to make them more keen on smaller government because they're paying taxes rather than receiving. Wonderful stuff. So people who would just say, oh, you hate this or you hate that or whatever, I did really demand the respect of saying, look, you can disagree with me, but I will not accept that you think I'm motivated by hatred or negativity or xenophobia or racism or whatever. Like, I will not accept that because that is simply a slur upon the very essence of my character. And I don't automatically assume that all leftists are driven by a hatred of the good for being the good, or a desire to destroy the free market because they can't compete and hate the successful. There are those elements, and I've certainly criticized those elements, but there are a lot of leftists, a lot of liberals who are motivated by, they think this is good for people, they think this is going to help people. I don't automatically assume that they are motivated by ill intent or bad motives. And I really do expect the same respect in return. So to me, it is not so much about the disagreement on policy or individual positions. It is really demanding the respect which is true and earned, which is that you and I and other people are coming from a place of love, a place of positivity, a place of really trying to solve social problems. And whether people disagree with our prescriptions, they can't say that we want to kill the patient. That is really a slur, and that I could not accept. Because if you give that up then the individual positions don't matter because they've already portrayed you as some nasty, horrible person.
Right.
And then getting into the details doesn't matter. That you have to start from that place. You have to demand that respect and offer it too to people, because if you think someone in your family is motivated by like hatred and then you can't have a debate with them. So I think asking for that mutual respect is the first place to start. If you can't get that, well, that becomes, I think, an unsolvable problem. But if you can get that, at least you can have a disagreement based upon mutual respect for motives, which I think is the basis.
I presume that they think that I am racist, and then that's my motivation. But there's an irony in this, because the course of their lives and my own life, those are the things that have reshaped my worldview. And so, like, I'm looking at how modernism has been detrimental to all of their lives, and I'm like, wow, I want to make the next generation better. I want people's lives to be improved upon. That really is my motivation. So the fact that they think that it's because, I'm racist, I'm like, no, I'm just looking at all your lives, and I'm like, whoa, we gotta fix this.
Well, it's funny how if you criticize feminism, and I think, I don't know what it is all over the world, but certainly in England, the number of women who self-identify as feminists is below 10%.
Yeah.
And in America, I'm sure in certain places that it's even lower than that. So this idea that, well, I'm criticizing feminism, well, now you hate women and don't want women to be equal. It's like, no, that's not it at all.
Not what I said. Yeah.
And so I needed that too. So when I went to start criticizing feminism, people would say, well, that just means you hate women. It's like, well, I'm kind of married to one. I have a wonderful daughter, female friends, and so on. And women love calling into my show for talking about philosophy and ideas. So I really had to have that as the baseline. And if I could not get that as the baseline, I had to make my decisions accordingly, but I really had to have that. I also had to be willing to extend that as well until proven otherwise. But yeah, if somebody thinks like, oh, you're just a racist, or you hate the poor, or you hate women, or whatever, then you cannot have a civilized breaking of the bread with someone. And they if they have any integrity and they genuinely believe that about you, they should never want to sit at the same table with you because you're a nasty, horrible, blah, 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 right? So if it's an emotional manipulation tactic, it needs to be dropped. If they genuinely believe it, I don't know how you can have a relationship with someone who really thinks that you're evil. I think that it's not possible.
I mean, at this point, it's just that they had kind of a visceral emotional reaction, so I suppose I should probably wait until, that fizzles out and everything. But I'm not super confident that they're going to be able to see what my real intention is. And once again, nobody's talked to me, and I feel like I could discuss this with them. I could reason with them. Is that how you did it? You just like contacted these people, and you're like, these are my motivations.
I try to be as proactive as possible when there's disagreements, if I want to continue or pursue a relationship. So call up. If you can sit down face to face, that's the best. Like phones are terrible for this stuff. Phones are good for arranging when you're going to meet, and that's that's about it. Because phones for conflict are really bad. Because in a pause, you don't know if someone's thinking. So you need face to face. In the big blue room, as they call it, like face to face in the flesh world, is the best way to have these kinds of conflicts, because it's a lot easier to be hostile to people who aren't breathing the same air in the same room.
Exactly.
So you have that. If you can't make that, at least video call, Skype or whatever it is. Like that's really, really important, because again, if you're looking into someone's eyes and you're going to call that person evil, it's actually good news if they don't call you. If they call you and say that you're evil face to face, or they sit down in the same room and scream that you're evil across the table, well, I don't know what there is to do about that, because
I don't think that would be the outcome. I'm not really sure how this would play out. I think that they would be meek in person.
Yes, so it's good that they're not going direct, because it means if there's direct, there's a way to diffuse things. So yes, I sat down with the people I had differences with, and I said, here's the trouble, and bring feelings in it too, because it's unpleasant, it's difficult, it's not just abstract. I mean, as you know, it's like you want to look forward to a Christmas dinner. You want to look forward to family gatherings. So sit down face to face with people as much as possible. And I found what was interesting was I found that it was kind of like holding a balloon underwater. So while we were sort of sitting there face to face, they were reasonable, but then what happened was they would bounce back to troll central like within a day or two afterwards. I don't know who or what got to work on. There was some brain virus that I was able to tamp down, spread back out again. And so I made my decisions accordingly. But for me, this is one of the many great things I took from Aristotle. Some of the the oldies but the goodies, the greatest hits of 2,500 years ago, Aristotle said, with regards to his critique of Plato and Plato's theory of the forms, which is, a little abstract, but we're dealing with very visceral stuff here with family. He said, we love our friends, but we must love the truth more. And that has been sort of my guiding principle. I cannot sacrifice the truth for relationships, because then I can't have a relationship, because I'm not there. If I've given up that which I treasure, that which I've worked for, that which I love, that which I'm very passionate about, that which I believe, if I give that up in order to have a relationship, I only have a relationship with my own self-loathing, because I have given up that which I treasure to conform to people I do not respect. And I don't think fundamentally we're built that way to find that productive or positive. And that's been my guiding principle, which again came out of reading Aristotle decades ago. And it doesn't just sort of work abstractly, it kind of works in my heart as well. Because I can't let go of... philosophy has become such a core part of me that to abandon it is to no longer be myself. It's literally now for me trying to live a relationship where philosophy is not allowed would be like me trying to give a speech to people in Japan. I don't speak the language. I can't do it.
Shouldn't that be an indication to your family of your motivations, though? Your adherence to truth, that you incorporate this philosophy into all of your life's decisions. I mean, that seems like it would be enough, and that's what I want my family to see. Like, having a channel like this is it's difficult. It detonates your personal relationships. You can't have a normal career ever again. I want them to see that I've given things up for the truth, so that I can tell people the truth. And I want that to be my perceived motivation. I think that isn't unfair, especially if they've seen my videos.
Well, and if you're Christian, don't you kind of worship a guy who rocked the boat? Don't you kind of worship a guy who questioned the value of state power? Don't you kind of worship a guy who spoke truth to power and was willing to sacrifice personal relationships in pursuit of a greater truth and a greater good? So it's always seemed to me odd in particular when Christians get social justice warrior-y, when they get really, really upset at people who speak basic truths. It's like, I don't think that you're really being a very good Christian, frankly, because...
Right.
No, it's kind of like, and I had the same thing when I was in university, when I took philosophy courses, that I was supposed to worship and respect all of these great philosophers who spoke truth to power and who reasoned against social approval and so on. But then the teachers would get pretty mad at me if I asked questions that annoyed them. And it's like, why are you studying these people? The only reason you're studying them is because they did the exact opposite of what you as a teacher are doing right now.
Oh, exactly.
And so I do find it's a wonderful opportunity for a conversation about religious faith and theology, because the question is, okay, so if you were around when Jesus was around, would you be on the side of Pontius Pilate, or would you be one of the disciples? And that's a very, very important question, and really there's no better time to ask it than Christmas.
I will do that and see how it goes over and report back.
All right. Well, I appreciate it, and I wish you the very best, as I do, with people. It is a tough season. We've got conversations about how much fun it is, and there is that, but for the fun to be present, the basic human respect has to be present first. And Rebecca, I really appreciate this, because there are a lot of people who are having challenges. Mine are fortunately in the rear view for reasons I've talked about in the show, but that's just a function of age. Just a couple of more tree rings around the old bark, and it makes a difference. But I do wish the very best to people. And look, if you're listening to this and you have some family member you think has gone off the deep end as far as reason and evidence goes, dig down deep into the residual nature of the love that you had, and ask yourself if it's possible that your family member could have just turned evil. It's not really very feasible or very possible. And be open to thoughts, be open to ideas, be open to question yourself. It is a beautiful thing. I don't know how intimate we can be with people in terms of knowing who they are if we don't think for ourselves. Who is there to know if they're just a big bag of cliches and echo chamber nonsense that they've got from academia and the mainstream media? That's not really a person. That's just like a pamphlet. And so think for yourself. It's really the only way we can be intimate. And thanks so much. I wish you the best.